What is up, guys? In this video, I'm gonna walk you through one of my favorite creative plugins. Some of you might have guessed it. Yes, it's the Guitar X6 plugin. So let's jump straight into the FL Studio project and let's get started. So Guitar X6 is really great at transforming boring sounds into really exciting, characterful sounds. So I have this sound in the famous 3 OSC from FL Studio. So we're going to use this for this tutorial. So I'm going to route the 3 times OSC into a mixer track, and I have Guitar X6 loaded up. So what I want to do now is go grab a Pro filter because I want to low pass that sound a little bit. Something like that. And what I really like about Guitar X6 is the modifier modules that they have. So I'm really a fan of the LFOs that they have. I tend to use the random shape, put up the rate, because now I can get like really random modulation going on. And we can apply this to the frequency cutoff. And then you can actually go here to the advanced settings and dial in how much modulation you want to apply to the different knobs. And I only want to have like a tiny amount of modulation so that the modulation of the low pass filter is not so obvious, but it's just there to give it the sound a little bit more life. Okay, so something like this sounds pretty nice. Then I think I will try to play around with some chorus. And this choral module is pretty dope because they have like a lot of crazy presets built into it. And I'm really liking those spaces that they have. So let's just try to play around with some of them. So this one is like almost like kind of acting as a reverb. So obviously I don't want this to be too much. So I'm gonna reduce the width a little bit. For the mix, gonna just have like a tiny amount of it, so around 20%. And then this feedback knob, I'm gonna reduce it a little bit. So let's listen to it. Pretty nice. So another really cool module is the side delay. And what I like to do is I want to add some pitches. So I'm gonna put this like 1 octave up in pitch, put down the feedback, and then we can try to have this unsynced and then play around with it, or then I will either sync it if it sounds a little bit too crazy. But then I will put this into reverse mode. So we're basically reversing the delays. Put down the mix, and let's try it out. So you get like those really nice atmospheric shimmers to the sound. Let's try to put it into sync mode. Pretty awesome. One really cool thing, if your rack is starting to get too long, you can actually press this collapse button here just to minimize everything so you have a little bit more space to play around in. So I want to maybe add a little bit more modulation to the sound, because for this tutorial we're gonna go really crazy with modulation. So let's try to maybe add a little bit of tremolo. So what I tend to do when I'm working with tremolos is that I crank up the intensity or the mix level and then set the rate to where I like want to have the movement, because then it's audible, and then I can dial back the intensity or the mix knob and get the desired result. So we're gonna try to do this with an unsynced rate and see how it sounds. And for this one, I like to have it in stereo mode. I think like this rate is pretty nice. Then I'm gonna dial back the intensity. Because now we get like that really nice bouncy kind of play in the stereo field with this tremolo. So I really, really like that. And then we're going to collapse this as well. Let's also add like a phaser just for the sake of it, just to really get the most out of the Guitar X6. Then I think we should try to just browse through some presets. Maybe try this one called Classic Stereo. How does this sound? I think I'm gonna crank up the notches and then maybe a little bit of the feedback. And then, because when you're adding like a lot of stereo effects, just make sure that stuff is not gonna get too wide. So I tend to just reduce the stereo width a bit, because we're gonna add like a lot of stuff on top, just to make sure everything sounds nice in mono as well. We're gonna reduce the mix knob. Really awesome. Think it's time to add a reverb. So I really like those reverbs coming from the reflector. Okay, let's go with the long plates and let's try this one, this echo plate, see how it sounds. Like, this is like a really like massive sound. I'm gonna add a little bit of pre-delay so we can hear like some of the initial transient and hits of the chords. I'm gonna reduce the decay a little bit, also the size, and then the width as well. Really nice. We can actually do a little bit more. Under the distortion, there is this component called byte, and it's like a mixture of a lot of stuff. What it basically does, in my understanding, is that you can reduce the bit rate of the sound. So you can go down in sample rate and also bit depth, and then you introduce these kind of like digital artifacts and noises, and it's really great to get like a more lo-fi signal to a sound. So let's put this to around here. And you can play around with like these like jitter knobs and crunch knobs to really like get a lot of like digital artifacts. And also add a little bit of saturation with this knob. And then I'm gonna just reduce the mix knob a little bit, so we still get a little bit of the original signal through. This is like the really sweet spot. And then I'm gonna set the high pass filter to around, I think, 100, because I want to roll off some of the low end. Really, really dope. So one thing we could do though is that we can go to special effects and grab this grain delay. Set the low cut and high cut to around here. And then we can put the mix knob all the way down and then go to the modifier section and go to the, I think we're gonna go with the analog sequence. So right now, like every time this one is up, the mix is gonna be put up for the grain delay, and then it can be totally reduced here. And then we can try to make like a little bit of like a weird looking pattern, just to add some general texture to the sound. So we can put this on the mix knob here, and then we can go down and see like how much modulation we want to apply. So I don't want to go too much, because this can be a little bit crazy when it's being fed a lot of audio into it. So I put up like the pitches by 12 semitones, and also added like for the grain size, just increased it a little bit. So you can definitely hear like every time like there is like being fed modulation into the mix knob, you can really hear like those like high shimmers from the grain delay. Okay, so I think it's time to play around with some EQ. So I'm gonna pull up the solid EQ. I know that this is like kind of like a piano chord kind of thing, so I don't want to have too much low end, so we're gonna reduce that. But then again, I want to add like a high shelf, because I want to pull up like those higher frequencies to really make it like shine through. So I think like at around maybe around here, 0.6K area. Let's just listen to it. Sounds really, really amazing to me. And then we can actually go and grab this solid bus compressor just to glue stuff together. And I basically just want like 1 to 2 dB of gain reduction. And I basically use the like default settings. We can reduce the threshold a little bit. This is sounding so dope. So I think like this is actually it for the patch. If you want to get your hands on 10 really unique and creative loops that I have made with Guitar X6, you can go to my membership site via the link in the description and go grab them. So I'm gonna close down Guitar X6. I'm gonna go into the mixer channel, and then I'm just gonna pull up a stereo imager plugin from Isotope just to make sure that we are not like going too wide, so that everything still sounds nice and mono. So you can actually see this is what I feared, is that we actually added like a little bit too much of stereo stuff. We can fix this in the imager plugin, dividing these bands. So for the mid-range, we're just going to reduce the stereo a little bit. And then we can boost the stereo in like the upper range here, just to still have some interesting stuff happening in the stereo field. But then I will also go back into Guitar X6, expand those components where we are using stereo effects, just reduce the stereo width. I think also for the faces as well, so just reduce that. And then we can go back and take a listen here. Then we can increase the level a little bit. It's a really, really solid result in my opinion. So let's just try to mute what we did. And let's put everything on. Like completely amazing. So what I really like about Guitar X6 is that you can just drag in all of these different components. There's also like a lot of presets that you can just try to flick through and really get creative results. So you can also use stuff that's maybe meant for bass sounds, but they can sound amazing on synth pads and stuff. I also have made some presets that are like also really like lo-fi and trying to do like creative stuff. If you want to, you can go check them out on my web shop. The link is also in the description down below. So I cannot recommend Guitar X6 enough for those that really want to dive into creative sound design. Oh, and if you're interested in watching more videos about Guitar X6, you should definitely go watch this video up here or here. Okay guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, it would mean so much to me if you would smash that like button or even subscribe to the channel. And remember to go check out the exclusive samples on my membership site. The link is still in the description down below. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Take care. Peace.